How's it going?
What's up, man? How we doing? Are you somewhere crazy? Are you somewhere crazy in the world right now?
Just at home in Dubai.
Okay, well, it's kind of crazy.
At home in
Yeah.
Dubai. Yeah. Josh and I looking at maps because of Breakpoint. We're like, oh,
That's where we're going.
yeah, we don't really know what's going on here. All right. So you are the co-founder of FORMA, and I guess you're hosting a Solana pop-up village in Georgia, of all places, bringing together over 100 creatives and builders. I'd love to hear about FORMA, and I'd love to just check in on the sort of network city, network state sort of movement. But I don't really know a whole lot about FORMA. So why don't we start there? What's sort of the gap in the world that you see existing that FORMA is stepping into?
Sure, yeah. I mean, about 2 years ago, my co-founder Babak and I started FORMA, or came up with the idea when we were on a road trip after meeting with Sovereign Wealth Fund in Abu Dhabi. So we used to work at a company called BuildSpace. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but yeah, I was part of the founding team. And towards the tail end of my time there, I started doing government BD, talking to countries about how they can increase economic development. Long story short, after a 3-month super intense road trip, one of the rides back, I've been in the Solana ecosystem for years now, but I was just thinking about, man, it'd be super interesting if, there's a way to formalize, economic kind of relationship between countries and, an internet native country, which is what I think about as blockchain as. And so that stewed on that idea for like a month and a half, and then reached out to a former guest he had on here, Akshay BD. Kind of started jamming with him about the idea, and that's kind of when we came up with the meme, Solana Economic Zone. So when we first started off, it was just an idea, like, can we take the kind of collective purchasing power, the collective identity of the network, and go and negotiate for special privileges with these countries that in return drive economic development locally. We already have super teams in 16 locations that are doing this bottom up, that without permission of the country are investing grant dollars, that are upskilling developers, that are incubating startups. And some of them are the reason why a few unicorns exist in countries that didn't have them before. And so we're like, what if we took the top-down approach? Do you think countries would be receptive? And so that's kind of when we came up with V1 of the idea. We're super inspired by kind of like Zuzalu and what the Edge City team was doing. And we're like, can we do like a Solana native version of this? And so, yeah, we started off going to Argentina. We did like a month-long pop-up village there. And since then, we've basically been going to countries that we think have the potential to be a regional financial hub, but have a marketing problem. And so we go in, we do a lot of research, we get a high level understanding of crypto penetration, and then willingness of the government to adopt crypto, and if there are also like any globally competitive opportunities for nomads. And then we work with the countries to try to see if there's some policy wins we can land. So yeah, we've done Argentina, Kazakhstan, Sri Lanka, super team UAE did one in Dubai, and Georgia is going to be our next one. I'd say Kazakhstan was definitely the one where we made most of our progress. Yeah.
What do the economic relationships with these countries look like, either today or in their ideal state?
Yeah, I mean, in Kazakhstan, Solana Foundation signed an MOU with the Ministry of Digital Development, which formally recognized Solana Economic Zone. And as a part of that, that was the first place or country where, after the government was bought in, we established a super team. And so we hired this amazing country lead named Talgat, who was already finished like upskilling like 1,500 developers, helped the country launch like national currency stablecoin on Solana. We worked with the National Bank on a lot of amazing policy initiatives. And I don't know if you saw, but the president recently announced a crypto city, which is an entire physical city where they're going to be testing like bleeding edge crypto regulation and also their strategic crypto reserve. And so, yeah, it was just like, right place, right timing. We had demonstrated that we've earnestly like worked with a handful of countries on kind of advancing policy efforts in crypto and attracting, what we like to call like the internet middle class. Is like people who live, work on the internet, earn dollars on the internet, primarily work in crypto, to those countries. So they were super excited to have us, yeah.
So how do you make money?
I mean, we're fully funded by the foundation to work on this thesis right now. Just like a super team, but we do top down, yeah.
Got it, okay.
I guess longer term then, like where does economic sustainability for a network state, or whatever you're calling this thing, come from?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. So over the last 2 years, we've been going to these different countries, kind of learning as much as we can about how much trade can happen between the network and the state. And I think now, we've come to a place where we think, just kind of like Balaji's doing network school, there's a really awesome opportunity to work with a lot of depth in partnership with one country on a long-term on helping them with their economic agenda. And, Balaji said this, but the business model of the network state is real estate. So it's, again, going to an undermarketed country where you can work with them to, acquire land, build housing, commercial space, advise them on the right policy effort to just attract like the right people to come and invest in their economy. So that's the thesis. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's yeah, I'm curious because I feel like there's there's histories of special economic zones working very, very well in sort of the manufacturing export. I think my characterizations of most of the sort of pop-up stuff so far is mostly like just a deeper conference, and so there's sort of people are going there for that sense of connection. And then I think the ones that have tried to really like define a space and really build a city have the most lofty goals and also seem like they've made the least progress to it. That might be incorrect. I don't know. I feel like there's weird media around all this kind of stuff. But it is interesting to me that, it seems like a pretty strong through line from what you're doing at Build Space to this. And one of the things, for folks that maybe aren't aware of what Build Space was, it was sort of this, this kind of this open movement for getting people to come in and work on whatever the hell they actually wanted to work on, create a space and community for it, and then create a whole ton of amazing media from it. And my understanding there was that the business model there was sort of more local government support into that. And yet Build Space is sort of shut down. So I'm wondering what lessons you've taken or inspirations you've taken from that early experience.
Yeah, tail end of Build Space is crazy. We started off by just making open source educational content, teaching developers how to go from zero to deploying a product, and so it's wild, like looking back, like early Web3 developer education and the first ever AI image generation tutorial, which is like 3.5 years ago, is what we shipped. yeah, we got like 50,000 people building on Ethereum, 25,000 on Solana, 40,000 people build AI apps. We started off just as like open source education, and then kind of pivoted to nights and weekends, which is like a very unique program. Just people spending their nights and weekends going from idea to first dollar earned on the internet. And so we just kind of saw that this crazy movement was happening intentionally or unintentionally, right? Like our last season of nights and weekends, I think we had 75,000 participants, and 15,000 of them went from 0 to 1, which is like building a product, launching on the internet. Significant amount of them earning dollars, a lot of them not even needing to raise a VC round because they got 7 figures of revenue. And we had no idea, how to capture that value, or we knew how to accelerate the creation of that value. And then what we started to see was there was definitely an interest from countries. Farhaj, in one of his last rounds, wrote about it, but we literally got an offer from the Abu Dhabi government to give us $10 million to build like a district for entrepreneurs, which is a fork of the physical school that we had built in San Francisco. So that was what gave me like the kind of electric shock down my spine, and I'm like, wow, there's a very sophisticated country with an extremely sophisticated foreign direct investment agency that's seeing the economic activity we're doing on the internet and wants to trade capital in return for our time and our network.
Right.
And so the way that I see is like in the future, the easiest way to think about the impact that a network is making, in a state is like through actual GDP contribution. And there are established metrics that you can use to evaluate it. How many companies were incorporated in that jurisdiction? How many net new residents were attracted to that jurisdiction? How much are they spending in money? In the UAE, there's 0% tax for personal income tax, so that doesn't matter. But when you go to another country, if you bring in 1,000 people or $100,000 on the internet, they pay 21% income tax, measurable impact to GDP. And so, at least in my mind, that's how I've been thinking about the impact and trying to figure out how to kind of partner with these countries.
I think it's so interesting because I'm seeing these movements that I'd say are driven mostly by young folks.
Yeah.
I think we're going to try to get this guy on the show, but he's, Josh and I are both Canadian. There's just this like whole movement driven by the absurdity of the Canadian government approach to startups, the funding, and like, this meme going around that it was, we have a startup visa, but it takes the wait time is 10 years to get processed right now. It's just like, what are we doing? And so we're seeing these often small physical spaces with some very charismatic, leader kind of come out and start to rally a bunch of people to saying, this is fucked. What are we talking about here? for Canada and in Ontario specifically, Shopify is the sort of the big example there. And he says Toby talks about just starting a multi-billion-dollar company from a laptop in a coffee shop, and I feel like there's sort of like it has never felt closer to be able to have an impact, like more accessible to be able to have an impact, and our governments have never seemed more out to absolute lunch around what people actually want and what can actually move the needle. And so if I sort of contextualize what you're doing in that broader thing, I think we're seeing a very big movement in that. And it's interesting that I wouldn't call that a network city state, or that wouldn't be the category I put it into.
I think network city makes sense. I personally don't want the military. I don't want my own passport, or I don't want to build a country, right? Like I am not interested in that. I'm an Indian citizen, and even though I spent 8 years in the U.S. and exited a company, like I had 90 days to leave the country because immigration was messed up. So I've been dealing with a lot of these issues all of my life, and I think it's quite unfair that we're at a point in history where the amount of people, by virtue of an internet connection, were kind of climbing asymmetric ratio into the internet middle class, making $100,000 plus a year on the internet, but are treated like third-class citizens of the world. Yeah. It's like quite unfair. And I think there's this huge opportunity, just like AI startups have forward deployed engineers that go and work to get these enterprises on board. Like, why can't the network have forward deployed business development people go find these small, nimble countries that are willing to trust you, and you can like actually in earnest help kind of advance your national economic agenda, build programs for some people for the internet middle class, and run smaller pilots and eventually scale up to have a town filled with amazing people who feel patriotic also about the country that they're coming to and contributing to. So that premise specifically is what I'm really interested in. And, with Salon Economic Zones, it's just an amazing opportunity to go and have a wide range of crazy experiments, and, make a handful of impact on the way there. But I think at least recently, and not just us, Balaji and, there's Bradford from Alpha City who's working on building charter cities in Africa. There are a lot of people who are getting to a further kind of level of clarity on what a few version of the end state of this thing looks like. And I think that's super exciting. The mental model that I have is one of my favorite books is Paper Belt on Fire by, I don't know if you guys have read that. It's by Michael Gibson, who's one of the co-founders of the Teal Fellowship with Daniel Schrockman. So he wrote this book about how, and Bill spaced a lot of it, and now thinking back again, was related to this thesis, but in America, the cost of education has kind of risen so significantly, over the last decade or two. Really what a vast majority of that spend is going into is administrative expenses, and so the average age of someone who's gotten a patent has gone up from 23 to 42 or something like that. I doubt young people are inventing less now. I just think there's a lot more administration that's preventing them from being able to contribute to science or anything else. And similarly, the cost of education has gone up so much, but it's crazy how profitable universities are. They're very large private equity funds. They basically own all of the real estate, usually within that town, and still charge people $250,000 for tuition. Why can't we kind of live in a universe where we change the university model, where you just have a property development company that owns a lot of that real estate, but now, and I think this is kind of what Adam Neumann and a bunch of people are exploring too, you use the network to solve the network effects problem, to get all these smart people to come together and be surrounded by creators and entrepreneurs and builders. I think there's a very large amount of demand for these communities and these places, but there's a lot of frictions that have been created, by countries unintentionally or, by governments intentionally. It's preventing from some of these experiments to exist. And so that is, I think, something that's really, really cool and worth exploring. Yeah.
All right. So November 15th to 23rd in Tbilisi, Georgia. What can people expect there? Yeah,
it's a 9-day event. We usually have a theme on every event that we're doing. I think Sri Lanka was the first time where we had a temporary village where everyone lived within 5-block radius of each other and went and surfed 3 days of the week and co-worked and did all the amazing things. Where we were beta testing what it's like to live around a lot of like-minded people, which again, NCT does really well. Georgia's going to be a lot like that, where we have a lot of the culture of the country we're showcasing, the number one wine sommelier in the world just happens to be residing at the property company that developed the hotel that we're partnering with. And so we're curating a bunch of kind of music, culture, kind of history-oriented experiences for people to come, beta test what it's like to live in that country, which is like the main thing we try to achieve with our pop-ups. And then in parallel, for the people who are interested in looking at Georgia as a place to set up a company or hire employees, we've had a lot of inroads with the government who are really looking forward to welcoming some of them there and telling them about the amazing programs that they have. So the idea is a two-pronged thing. One side, amazing cultural experience, come lock in during the day, and nights and weekends, spend quality time with all these amazing people. And if you're someone who's interested in the Georgian economy, we can give you a 1 degree separation perspective into all the amazing things that the countries are up to.
Giddy up. I mean, that's coming up. It's coming up.
2 weeks. Yeah. 2 weeks. That's
Cool.
going to be a banger.
Well, yeah, you should give us a call in from Tbilisi, Georgia, and give us a view of what's going on.
Yeah.
Oh, good call.
That'd be kind of fun because I think it's in these emergent places that new interesting things happen, and I think also the selection bias that happens when people are like just making a decision to go be in a place and to be around people for a specific amount of time, I think is just leads to interesting things.
Yeah.
So
Georgia's super interested. Sorry, it's super based and underappreciated. People don't know that the entire country is basically economic zone. Like they have this like new tax policy where you can pay just 1% tax on your personal income if you earn in foreign currency. So if you live in Georgia but you earn money working for a foreign company, you can do that, and you pay 0% tax on your crypto. And now they have special programs that allow for Indians and Africans to immigrate to the country. They're launching an IT professional visa. So if you're a dev, you can move there very easily. And a new digital nomad visa. And in terms of quality of life, it's insane. I mean, they have some of the best wine in the world, best food in the world. People are super chill, Western vibes, having a good time. So
what's the weather like?
Jess,
What's the weather like in November?
You're selling me, man.
Hold on. What's the weather like in November, Josh? Come on.
It's nice. It's just slightly chilly. So it's good enough for you to wear your favorite jacket. You know what I'm saying?
My favorite weather in here. Fall, eternal fall. Let's go.
Yeah. Basically, it's fall kind of stepping into winter. Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out where that is. Like,
I was looking at
California, or what are we
the
talking
Caucasus.
I know, but like, what line of latitude are we at here?
Yeah.
I just want to improve my warmth here because we live in Canada. Like we are limited by that 49th parallel. You can't go below it, and so
it's definitely warmer than Canada. That's for sure.
Perfect. That's all I need to know. Yeah. Warmer than Canada. All right, man. Well, coming down to crunch time. Appreciate you jumping on and catching us up with things. I think very interesting what you're going to go do, and we'll take it offline and see if we can get a live look from you maybe in 2 weeks.
Sounds like a plan. Ciao, guys.
Thank you.
Peace, man.